I am a songbird.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Earthling Nutrition. Thank you so much for joining me once again today. So today's topic is a very important one. I'm going to answer the question, why do people gain fat on raw till 4? I'm not going to be talking about just general weight gain on a high-carb, low-fat diet because looking at a scale, weight can encompass many different factors. It can take into consideration muscle gain, the food weight, water retention from sodium, glycogen storage and the bound water, and just so many other influencers. Today's video, I will specifically address the question why people gain fat on raw till 4. Now this is a very common issue within this community. People often gain 10, 20, 30, 40 plus pounds. The largest that I have heard of is close to 100 pounds within 2 years. And Harley and Freely, the creators of raw till 4, have come up with the interpretation in response to this issue being metabolic damage. That gaining all this fat back is your body's way of recovering from restriction in the past, from yo-yo dieting, and that you just have to be patient and wait it out and let your body heal before it can start to lose fat. So other YouTubers have done videos addressing the fact that lots of people seem to gain weight, gain fat on raw till 4, and questioning the validity of the recommendations that Harley and Freely make. And probably all of us has seen how this turns out for people that stand up and say something against raw till 4, because we can see that they are personally attacked and ridiculed, because apparently providing comments and criticisms is something that only Harley is allowed to do. Two YouTubers that have been fairly outspoken about this topic are Hannah from High Carb Hannah and Derek from Unconventional Living. Hannah has said that she has personally gained weight on raw till 4, and I will be using her experience as an example throughout this video. Her partner Derek came out recently with a video with footage from interviews with Dr. Michael Greger and Dr. T. Colin Campbell, leading experts in the field of nutrition and health. The facts and the studies that I will be discussing today is driven by my motivation to help people understand what is happening so they can be empowered to make health changes that will benefit them. They do not have to settle for blanket terms like metabolic damage or be told that they're doing it wrong or they just need to make it work for themselves. I think that there is a huge injustice in doing this. I believe in finding real solutions to these problems, and hopefully this video will make you realize that the recommendations that you may be following currently on raw till 4 have no scientific basis, and you should consider other options. So there's been a few YouTubers that have talked about, possible interpretations of why people gain fat on raw till 4, but no one so far has, brought to light any studies that compare what's happening to experiments that have been done by professional researchers. The concept of high-carb, low-fat vegan is that fat is moderated, it is kept low so that there is no possibility of excess fat being stored as body fats. But no one has ever explained how much fat is too much fat. How much fat do we need to consume before the excess is stored as body fats? Because I think very few people have an understanding of the biochemical conditions that need to be in place in order to store fat as fat, or in order to store glucose as fat, which is what this video will discuss. Let's define some simple terminology. De novo lipogenesis, DNL for short, is the conversion of glucose into fatty acids to be stored in our body fat tissue as stored triglycerides. I've done several videos discussing how rare DNL is on a whole foods plant-based diet. I have discussed how difficult it is to, surpass stomach volume and saturate glycogen stores. I have previously used the capacity of 2 pounds of glycogen storage capacity available to store excess carbohydrates, because this is the number that I have read in John McDougall articles. However, upon further research, I realized that a more realistic number is 500 grams. Other people have mentioned this in videos, and I definitely always look at your feedback, and I make sure that I update my opinions and recommendations based on new information. And so I knew that 2 pounds was not accurate. I did research, discovered that 500 grams was more accurate, and have changed my opinions based on that. For the past few months, I have been looking deeply into how it might be possible for carbohydrates to turn to fats. I wanted to know if there was a way that people were activating de novo lipogenesis on ROT4 and why this was happening. I didn't know if there was anything that would change my mind on this topic and make me think that there was a way to get fat from eating carbohydrates, because I heavily researched John McDougall articles. I've read basically all of them on his website. I've read most of his books. And one study that I have used a lot in my videos is one that John McDougall references in response to, is it possible to gain fat from eating carbohydrates? And so I'll just explain this study right now. So this was a 2001 study. Both trim and obese women were fed 50% more calories than they usually ate in one day, along with an extra 135 grams of refined sugar. They produced less than 4 grams of fat daily, and that's just 36 extra calories stored as fat per day. And so you would have to eat all of those extra calories and table sugar every day for nearly 4 months just to gain 1 pound of body fats. And I know that Durin writer Harley has used this study on his blog as evidence that you cannot gain fat from eating carbohydrates. And up until recently, I did not question the study. I thought it was a great representation of the recommendation that, eat as much carbs as you want and you can't get fat, even from processed sugars. But then I decided just to look at the study itself, not to read the John McDougall article, but to look at the reference he gave and to actually get the PDF file and read the actual study to find out what exactly these women were being fed. And so I did look it up, and this is what I found. So these women were being given a total macronutrient intake of 375 grams of carbohydrates, 136 grams of fats, and 56 grams of protein, totaling 2,948 calories total each day. And so this is when I started to scratch my head. This is when the light bulb started to go off. And I realized 375 grams of carbohydrates. That is nothing on this diet. I remember when I was tracking my calories and macronutrients on Chronometer and on Figwe.com, I was getting up absolutely above 500 grams of carbohydrates a day. And getting into the 700s, 800s, I even had one day where I was consuming 900 grams of carbs per day. And I thought at the time, wow, this is so impressive. Look how many grams of carbs I'm eating. That's awesome. And I had no understanding at that point of the physiological implications of doing this. So I decided to look for a study that more closely resembled the conditions that one would experience on ROT4. More similar macronutrient values and in grams than this study, because this study, the 2001 study with trim and obese women being overfed 135 grams of sugar, does not closely resemble ROT4 in any way. Therefore, it's not a good comparison to make. And then I found this study, and I'd like to talk about it now. Once upon a time, there was a study that lasted 14 consecutive days. During the first 3 days, the subjects consumed a restricted diet high in fat and low in carbohydrates. They followed an exercise program. On the 4th day, the diet was changed to a high carbohydrates, low-fat diet that was ingested for the following 7 days. During the overfeeding period, which was days 4 to 10 inclusive, the high-carb, low-fat diet provided 3,600 calories, composed of 11% protein, 3% fats, and 86% carbohydrates. For the first 2 days, the subjects performed various types of physical activity, for example, running and swimming, during this period to deplete their muscle glycogen stores. And so they did this because they wanted to see from a very, very low capacity of glycogen how much would fill up and how much would become saturated and lead to de novo lipogenesis. With the onset of carbohydrate overfeeding on day 4, there was a dramatic increase in carbohydrate oxidation, so we were burning more carbs when we were being fed more, as well as that used for de novo lipid synthesis, de novo lipogenesis, which increased progressively in response to the increase in carbohydrate ingestion. Accompanying the increase in carbohydrate utilization, there was a rapid suppression of lipid oxidation, and so no fat, none of our body fat was being burned at this time. As the diet passed from a hypocaloric, high-fat, low-carb diet to a hypercaloric, high-carb, low-fat composition, the glycogen stores had become saturated. There was an increase in the mean 24-hour non-protein respiratory quotient, exceeding 1. And so you don't have to know exactly what this is, just know that it is indicative of net de novo lipid synthesis. On day 2 of the carbohydrate overfeeding, it continued to increase and reach a value of 1.15 during the last 3 days of the overfeeding, when daily fat synthesis from glucose averaged 142 grams per day. During the 6 days which lipid synthesis exceeded fat oxidation, net de novo lipogenesis amounted for a total of 580 grams. Because in addition to de novo lipogenesis, some fat was provided in the diet, and remember this is a still very, very low-fat diet, even less than RAW-TIL4 recommends. RAW-TIL4 recommends about 5% of the daily calories coming from fat. This study did 3%. The overall fat gain was 1.1 kilograms in just 7 days. When the glycogen stores had increased by 500 grams at end of day 2 of overfeeding, carbohydrate oxidation and storage became inefficient to dispose of all the ingested carbohydrates. The excess was disposed of by conversion to fats via de novo lipogenesis. Now this is what the researchers said in the discussion part of this study. We and others demonstrated that humans can ingest relatively large amounts of carbohydrates without initiating de novo lipid synthesis at rates exceeding concomitant fat oxidation. These results are consistent with in vitro data demonstrating very low fatty acid synthase activity in the human liver and adipose tissue, even after the ingestion of carbohydrate-rich diets for 3 days. However, we did observe elevated fatty acid synthase activities in certain situations where long-term fat-free diets were being received. It is precisely under such situations that high rates of de novo lipid synthesis were observed with indirect calorimetry. In addition to providing an assessment of the body's maximal glycogen storage capacity, this study also demonstrated that de novo lipid synthesis can become a major metabolic pathway for the disposal of excess glucose carbons. This is not only evident from the respiratory exchange data, but also from the increases observed in plasma triglycerides, which increased tenfold during carbohydrate overfeeding, and the proportion of plasma VLDL. VLDLs are very low-density lipoproteins. They're just a carrier molecule for triglycerides, which increased from 20% to 70%. Because very little triglycerides were provided in the diet at this time, because remember, the diet was only 3% of the calories coming from fat, it must have originated as newly formed triglycerides in the liver, which is the principal site of de novo lipid synthesis in man. So I just want to show you guys some charts now of how many grams of carbohydrates these men were eating. And so you can see that their macronutrient ranges for carbohydrates range between 700 grams of carbs to 1,000 grams of carbs. And this is when I realized that these ranges, especially just any amounts over 500 grams, is saturating our glycogen stores. And this is the amount that people are consuming on a daily basis on RAW-TIL4. Now remember that when our glycogen storage capacity is full, once you reach over 500 grams of carbs, de novo lipogenesis becomes the pathway to dispose of these glucose carbons. Now this was a huge light bulb moment for me when I finished reading the study, and I wanted to see if my hypothesis was correct. And so I went over to Freely's 7-day meal planner for RAW-TIL4. Let's take a look at that now.
So we have the coconut sugar, and we have the dates. We have 20 dates and about 60 ounces of water, or 1.7 liters. Don't go crazy, just 1 drop. So the coconut sugar goes in. Today I'm making some sushi. And there's, it's low fat. We just got veggies to go in it. Some marinated mushrooms, marinated in lemon juice, and some nori wraps. Okay, so there we have the sushi ready to roll. There we have the platter. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Yummy, yummy, yummy in my tummy. So here we have the chopped up mangoes. 10. No salt on them, no nothing. These are actually really tasty potatoes. You can put some low sodium, low fat tomato sauce on them if you want, and some lettuce. I've got 10 bananas. Here's all the skins. 10 bananas in a half water, coconut water.
Okay.
This is really beautiful. That's how ripe your banana should be.
Okay, so spotty.
Coconut sugar in it. Just whack in a little bit of coconut.
Coconut flavour.
Yes. Woo! Cheers, big ears. Hey folks, so now we're at lunch and I'm about to have a Daterade. So this has water, it has 20 dates, coconut sugar, and it's got vanilla drops, which are really, really yummy. So this is all, this is all the pasta. What's on top? There you go, amazing, beautiful tutti frutti orange juice. I'm gonna really, really enjoy this. That's about a litre of... Oh, get back here. Pop your wedges or your chips and put them into the oven. So there we have our no-fat fries and our sweet chili dipping sauce. Papayas, having all of that, plus this one here, it won't fit on the desk.
So I actually went through all of these different meals and calculated how many grams of carbohydrates were in them if you were consuming what's recommended on Raw Till 4. So I'm just going to do a few examples for you guys, very typical, fair examples I think, just of how many carbohydrates would be intaken if you were on Raw Till 4. And so if you are drinking a typical smoothie that Freely recommends, here in her recipe I broke it down, so a quarter cup of coconut sugar is 48 grams of carbs, and then there's 21.6 grams in banana times 10 bananas, which is 216. Add these numbers together and you get 264. There is Daterade, and so that is 20 dates, she recommends, and 16 grams of sugar per date, so 320, plus another quarter cup of refined sugar, which is 48 grams, and altogether that's 368 grams. Let's say for supper you have a typical pasta meal, so Freely recommends 300 grams of dry pasta, of corn pasta. And so 100 grams is 83 grams of carbs, times 3 is 249 grams of carbohydrates. So now we're going to add together the banana smoothie, the Daterade, and the corn pasta, and we get 881 grams of carbohydrates. Alright, now let's move on to a different example. Let's say we're having a Daterade for breakfast, a mango meal for lunch, and then French fries. The French fries are 3.7 pounds of potatoes, she recommends. And so altogether, Daterade, mango meal for lunch. So Daterade for breakfast, mango meal for lunch, and French fries for dinner. And with the French fries, she makes a sweet chili sauce with a quarter cup of refined sugar in it, with coconut sugar. And so I've taken that into consideration as well. So this is 991 grams of carbs. So very close to 1,000 grams of carbs. Alright, just to be sassy, let's take the 3 options that are lowest in carbs and see what they add up to. And so let's take orange juice breakfast, and Freely recommends that you have 1.5 liters or 6 cups of orange juice. So that's 126 grams of sugar there. For lunch, she has recommended 3 papayas, which 61 grams in 1 times 3, 183 grams of carbohydrates. And then for supper, sushi with 300 grams of raw rice, which is 237 grams. And so these are the 3 lowest carb options, and still we have 546 grams of carbohydrates, which is enough to saturate those stores and lead to de novo lipogenesis. Now remember that the men in this massive carbohydrate overfeeding experiment were consuming between 700 to 1,000 grams of carbohydrates. And so if you are on Raw Till 4 and following the recommendations exactly, smashing in the carbs, reaching for that 2,500 calorie minimum for women and 3,000 plus calorie minimum for men, then it is very, very likely that you are within this range, or at the very least above 500 grams of carbohydrates. Now our body can handle surpassing 500 grams occasionally, right? Just our carbohydrate oxidation rates will increase. We may notice that we get a little bit more fidgety and feel a little bit more active and get off because our body wants to use up those carbohydrates. It doesn't want to turn them to fat, but it's being forced to because our glycogen stores are becoming so saturated that our body has no other choice but to activate de novo lipogenesis in order to dispose of this extra carbohydrate. Can you imagine the reaction from the researchers of this massive carbohydrate overfeeding in men if they found out that thousands of people were doing this on a daily basis, that we're hitting these ranges and that we're activating DNL? I just think it would be like the craziest thing to get into contact with one of the researchers that conducted the study and tell them about ROTIL4, because I think that they would just be so shocked that so many people were participating in this great overfeeding experiments, and they probably would be completely surprised that so many people were sticking it out even though they were gaining fats. But of course they wouldn't understand the sheer influence of Harley and Freely. I got sucked into it too. I, for sure, thought that it was impossible for carbohydrates to turn to fats, just because it's spouted so often and so passionately by the creators, just that carbs don't make you fat, fat makes you fat. If carbs make you fat, then I'd be fat, but I'm lean, and all this stuff, and it's so repetitive that it just becomes your belief system. It's kind of just hardened into a lot of people's minds. I had relied on that one study, that one 2001 study that John McDougall references, and nothing against John McDougall here. He just probably didn't even think that anyone would try to reach those ranges anyway. You have to be really trying hard. You really have to be smashing in the carbs, literally, and not from whole food sources. But look how often Freely recommends you add additional sugar to already very high sugar meals, like this addition of coconut sugar. It's empty calories. There may be some vitamins and minerals, but it has been stripped away from its whole food parent. It's losing all of the nutrients and phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals and just everything that a coconut has. You're just taking away the sugar and you're adding it to a diet where it's not doing anything except contribute to de novo lipogenesis fat gain. So remember that the participants gained on average 1.1 kilograms of body fat in just 6 days. And so 1.1 kilograms is around 2.43 pounds of fat in 6 days. And so in 1 day they would have gained 0.405 pounds of fat, so almost half a pound of fat per day. And so let's multiply this number by 30 days, which is a pretty fair, trial of ROTIL4. If someone's wanting to try it, they might try it out for 30 days, right? And this computes to 12.15 pounds of fat per month. 2 months, we're at 24 pounds. 3 months, we're at 36, so on and so forth. And so if you have gained weight on ROTIL4, this is why. This is the answer to that. It is not the blanket term metabolic damage. There are specific reasons, whether or not you have hormonal imbalances or thyroid issues or slow digestion or whatever. There is no reason for you to be gaining all this fat just because your body has been restricting in the past. This makes utterly no sense. If the body was enjoying, if the body was handling and thriving on the food you were giving it, you would not be gaining up to 36 pounds of fat in 3 months. There is a scientifically based answer. It's not just metabolic damage. It means that you are saturating your glycogen stores and so that they cannot hold any more, and your body is resorting to a very rare mechanism to dispose of carbohydrates. Okay, let's talk about Hannah from High Carb Hannah. So she has come out with a few videos discussing her weight gain on ROTIL4 and her weight loss on starch solution. I wanted to use Hannah as an example because I wanted someone that had tried out ROTIL4 for a few months at a time and had gained weight, gained fat during this time. And so Lauren from the channel Sugar and Starch recently came out with a video explaining that she didn't think that Hannah's weight gain was caused by being on ROTIL4, that she believed that juice fasting and calorie restriction had led her to binging on high-fat vegan food or even non-vegan food. Lauren wanted to make this video in order to bring out her side of the story and what she knew about what Hannah was doing at that time and why she thought that Hannah had gained this weight, and basically why she didn't think that it was because of Raw Till 4. And so I love Lauren. I really respect her opinions. Her videos are really great resources for people that are wanting to go vegan and overcome health issues. But again, if you want to find out the truth about something, you need to go directly to the source. And so I decided to contact Hannah directly and ask her my own questions. So Hannah was very willing to talk, which made me think that she had nothing to hide and that she was going to honestly answer the questions that I had about her experience and the exact time frames and exactly what she was doing that led to her weight gain. So first of all, I asked her if she thought that her weight gain was attributed to the binging after failing on a juice fast. And this was her reply. This is exactly her words, by the way. No, I gained all of my weight in the first 3 months eating 30 bad/Raw Till 4, 2,500 calorie minimum. I have my blood tests, which someone told me that my triglycerides were through the roof. This was when I was eating over 2,500 calories a day. I just remember I would drink all this fruit and get incredibly shaky and feel very weird and then be starving an hour later. I had a very shitty breakup with an ex, and this was the video where I said I got drunk one night and smoked cigarettes and ate animal products, but it was one night out of 365 days. So no, the weight gain wasn't from me binging on alcohol or animal products, it was just one mess up, and I felt awful about it and made that video. After gaining 30 pounds in such a short time, I really got depressed, and I think from eating so much and gaining so much weight, I was always just tired, my skin was awful, and I felt like crap. So I started looking into healing my body through raw foods and juice fasting, which I tried for a few months, December to March, and I didn't lose or gain any more weight. So now, March to July, Hannah is back on Raw Till 4. So then after that, I tried the whole 2,500 calorie minimum again, Raw Till 4 style, for a few months, but this time I worked out. I did actually gain like 7 pounds in that time period, so I got up to 188. I was riding my bike about 100 miles a week during that time period and still gained 7 pounds. And so the first 3 months of eating Raw Till 4, she was achieving the 2,500 calorie a day minimum, and she had gained the weight during this 3-month period. When she was juice fasting, she didn't gain any weight, she didn't lose any weight, and during her short 1-day binge, obviously she didn't gain or lose any significant amount of weight. After she had done this juice fasting, she decides to go back on Raw Till 4, does this for March to July, because July she starts on starch solution, and she gains an additional 7 pounds, even though she's also exercising at this time. I asked her what a typical day of eating looked like for her, and this is what she said. She said 10 banana smoothie in the morning, maybe a Gatorade for lunch with like 20 or so dates, and then at least 1,000 calories worth of starch for dinner. I ate a ton, and this is exactly what people are being recommended to do on Raw Till 4. She also provided some chronometer breakdowns, and so you can see 800 calories one day, 750 and 620. All of these are above that 500 gram capacity for glycogen storage, and yeah, it all makes sense. So I asked her how often she would get up to 2,500 plus calories, and she replied, every day, most days I ate way more though, like 3,000 plus calories. So, Hannah is a perfect example of someone who followed Raw Till 4 to the T, exactly, made sure to carb the F up, and yet this happens. And there is a reason behind it. Another thing that I found very, very relevant and interesting is that, remember back in the study, an indicator that de novo lipogenesis was occurring in these men was that they had elevated triglycerides and elevated VLDLs. And so Hannah shows her blood results during this time that she was doing Raw Till 4, and guess what they show? Elevated triglyceride levels and elevated VLDL levels. Now I just wanted to quickly discuss why not all people will experience the huge weight gain that would be expected from these conditions. So first of all, individuals who are athletic and have an exercise regime where they are using up some of their glycogen stores, preventing them from becoming saturated, are at a lower risk of course, activating de novo lipogenesis because they are burning some of those carbs in their exercise. And so Durian Rider and Freely would be an excellent example of someone that have a consistent exercise routine, and there is no way of them surpassing glycogen storage capacity because also they have a leaner body composition, and so muscle consumes more calories coming from whatever macronutrient. And so on average, a person that has more muscle than fats will be burning more calories. This is also why males are at a lower risk of developing issues from de novo lipogenesis than women are, because men tend to have a bit leaner of a body composition. Therefore, their metabolisms are higher and their energy needs are higher.
Well, you want to see what the result is? The result is that now I've gone from being relatively lean to being kind of fat. I've got a nice pudgy belly here. I've got some man boobs. My butt's pretty jiggly. Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle all over the place. Frankly, it's getting old.
And of course, there are people that say they're following Raw Till 4 but are not reaching 2,500. They're eating less than is recommended, and therefore they're not saturating their glycogen stores. They're under eating by standards of Durian Rider and Freely. Now I'm going to talk about why people lose weight on Raw Till 4, because there are a few reasons people will notice weight loss. One of these is that the diet is really low in sodium compared to what an average Western diet would include. So the average American consumes 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day, and actually consuming 400 milligrams of sodium causes our body to retain about 4 cups of water in our tissues, which equals about 2 pounds. So if we do the math, we can see that if you are consuming just an average sodium intake of an average American, we could be retaining about 17 pounds of water just in our tissues. And so when you start to cut back on salt, which you would be if you were consuming just fruit for the earlier part of the day and then a starch meal with low sodium seasonings and sauces and things like that, you're significantly reducing the amounts of water retention caused by sodium. And so if you're noticing that you've lost 10 to 20 pounds, you should consider the possibility that you might not have even lost any fats. You may have just lost water. And I mean, water retention in the tissues looks very, very similar to fat. Just because looking at your stomach or whatever, you won't be able to tell whether that's fat or that's water. And I think that because fruit is also so high in potassium, this is also a driving factor that releases even more of this water in possibly a shorter amount of time. So the second reason why people might be losing weight on Raw Till 4 is just that they're not gaining any more fats. And so because they're not consuming oils, animal products like meat, cheese, eggs, whatever, their fat is so low that they're not gaining any more fats from the consumption of dietary fats. And we can think back to the study that I referenced, and Raw Till 4 promotes 5% of the daily calories coming from fats, and the diet that the men were on was 3%, and so even lower. And so there is very little fat being stored in the body that was coming from dietary fat. It was almost exclusively coming from de novo lipogenesis. And another reason why people may lose weight on Raw Till 4 is that they're able to exercise. And generally they are usually unknowingly exercising within the recommendations that I make as far as doing a light to moderate activity like biking, walking, light jogging, light running, things like that. Anything that is around that 65% VO2 max and under where we are oxidizing the most fats, and we're doing a cardiovascular activity. So this exercise is helping to cancel out some of the fat that's being gained from the overfeeding on carbohydrates. Well now, here we are. For so many years, people have been told by Harleen Freely and by other people in this community that carbs do not turn to fat. Their fat gain is just something that's necessary. It's part of their healing process. It's metabolic damage. Carbs don't turn to fat. Only fat makes you fat. Well, this is the evidence that indeed it does happen. I myself have even been saying diligently in videos that it's only under very rare dietary conditions that glucose is turned to fats. And this is the real game changer. Raw till 4 is not a normal dietary condition. No culture, no successful, sustainable, thriving culture in the world subsists on only raw food for the first 2 meals of the day, not eating any cooked food at all, for no reason at all, and then has a huge starch meal at night. If anything, the exact opposite would occur. Most civilizations and most cultures will eat their heavier meals, starch meals, during the first half of the day when their metabolism is at its highest and they require that amount of energy because they're doing more work, they're getting up and moving more. And then towards the evening, they start to lighten up on their food. It's less heavy, dense foods. And certainly, no traditional culture consumes additional sugar, empty calories, processed coconut sugar, just to reach calorie goals. No animal in nature or human in a thriving dietary environment goes on to chronometer and ensures that they get to a certain calorie goal every day, just for the sake of it. There are also no considerations for macronutrient ratios in cultures that are lean and healthy and thriving and disease-free. They just eat whole plant foods. They don't worry about avoiding nuts, seeds, and avocados just because they have fats. And they certainly don't consume huge amounts of processed sugar just so they can carb the F up. Raw till 4, aside from the fat gain that I've discussed heavily in this video, offers no benefits or no advantages from a perspective of convenience, affordability, digestibility, or energy quality. I have discussed these topics separately and extensively in other videos that you can check out if you're interested. But the main problems that I see is that eating fruit only throughout the day, no fats, no starches, is jumping from these jolts of quick-release energy, because the energy from fruit goes very quickly into the bloodstream, is assimilated and used, and then you have a depression, you have a decrease in your blood glucose again, and you're left feeling low on energy. In addition, it's quickly digested, which doesn't mean that it's good for digestion if it's quickly digested. It just means that our stomach muscles are not becoming stronger because we're just feeding it fruit for the first half of the day, and then not, challenging, not building up those muscles in our stomach and digestive system and motivating peristalsis and the muscular movements of our digestive tract. We're just bathing it with all this fruit and water, and we're not improving our digestion. We're just babying it. And then come evening, people are so hungry and just craving starches because they're riding these jolts of quick-release energy. Their body is craving a steady, stable energy source, and people tend to really just eat a lot of starches for dinner because, understandably, their body is craving that more stable energy source and a more filling energy source. And so people are consuming this huge starch meal at night when our body needs to relax. I mean, most cultures will eat a lighter meal in the evening because evening is the time to lessen the workload of the body in order to allow it to relax and prepare itself for sleep. Instead, people following Raw till 4 are consuming this big starch meal at night after consuming very quickly digestible fruits throughout the day, and your body is like, whoa, we have to slow down because it becomes so overwhelmed because the food is so much heavier in comparison to the fruits. It also has to prepare different digestive enzymes that it doesn't have to use throughout the day because amylase isn't needed to digest fruits, but it is needed to digest starches. I hear from so many people that they go to bed on Raw till 4 with this huge bloated stomach. And I mean, as far as, I used to think it was funny and clever when Freely said, go to bed like Buddha and wake up like Gandhi. Because I certainly believed it, although it wasn't happening in my case, and for a lot of people it's not happening in their case either, because they're waking up with the food still being in their stomach, because digestion is so slow. They go to bed with a full stomach and they wake up with a full stomach. They don't wake up like Gandhi. They wake up still feeling bloated and just not motivated to get out and exercise or to go and start their day on a positive note, because that food is still in their stomach, it's still digesting and still metabolizing. So just from a digestibility and energy quality perspective, raw till 4 is not an ideal diet for people wanting to achieve weight loss and health. There's also still the affordability and convenience issue. The convenience of it, I'm not talking about food preparation time, because it doesn't take that much time to prepare fruit meals or anything, but I'm talking about having to constantly eat, because fruit, the energy does not last long. And also, just because fruit is attached, the calories are attached to water, you're constantly having to go pee, having to go to the bathroom. And then of course just the affordability. Raw till 4 was designed with the intent to provide more affordability and more convenience than raw veganism. And definitely, props to it. It does provide, slightly more of these attributes. However, it's still unaffordable for a lot of people. Having, 6 to 10 mangoes or having 3 papayas, that's just not doable for most people. If it's not good for fat loss, if it's actually making you gain fat, if you're just feeling like a hamster stuck in a hamster wheel, just going round and round and trying to follow recommendations for eating, carbing up and trying to exercise, but it's just not helping and you're even gaining weight even though you're exercising frequently. If you're having digestive issues, if you're feeling like you're spending so much money, if you're going to the bathroom so much, and it's just all these factors should really make you question whether anyone should be on this diet. There are people that are going to comment and say that raw till 4 worked for me. And I can say that too. I can say that raw till 4 helped me overcome my eating disorder. It helped me to realize that food was not my enemy. It inspired me to help others realize the same thing. And it also inspired me to learn the science behind these things, and so I could make recommendations to people that had scientific evidence. So I did get healthier on raw till 4, because before I was drinking coffee until late afternoon. I was eating barely anything, and then I would binge out on stuff and feel awful about it. I was in a bad state of health for sure, and raw till 4 was an important component of my journey that made me realize, a lot of different things. However, for people that are coming from any sort of background that would like to get healthy, I do not recommend raw till 4 because it just offers very little. If the only thing that it's offering is freedom from food, you can get that from a diet that actually contributes to good health and sustainable permanent weight loss. I know some people are going to be very defensive about Daring Rider and Freely because they are huge figureheads in this community. They have done so many videos and motivated so many people to become vegan. And so I am not discrediting them based around this fact. What I am intending with this video is to show you that there is a balanced, healthy way to eat where you are not worrying about tracking your calories, macronutrient ratios, controlling your food, when all you have to do is eat whole plant foods that contain the appropriate amounts of macro and micronutrients. I believe that it is really important to look deeper into issues and find out what is causing them and then make strategic changes to fix them. You don't have to settle for answers that don't make any sense to you, or just think that you have to wait years and years to start feeling good and healthy and lose weight. It can be done the moment you start on a whole food diet. A few people have questioned Harley and Freely's knowledge on nutritional science, but so far no one has brought, any studies of relevance to the table until now. To be extremely, extremely clear, I am not advocating for calorie restriction in any way, or carbohydrate restriction. I am just saying that there is no need for you to consume huge amounts of food that you're not hungry for. or to stuff in as much as you can just to meet, a number on chronometer, and then adding in refined sugar in order to meet these artificial and unscientific recommendations. I'm not promoting calorie restriction because it isn't necessary to lose weight. What is necessary is to provide your body with energy coming from slow, steady sources like starches and plant fats like nuts, seeds, avocados, and then have a balance between this slow and quick release energy from fruits. You don't have to restrict your fruit, you don't have to restrict your starches. You don't have to restrict your carbs, guys. You just don't have to force them in and feel guilty if you aren't meeting these ridiculous calorie recommendations. Whole plant foods are intact with their vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, macronutrients, and fiber. And fiber is extremely important in strengthening your digestive muscles and allowing food to be absorbed at a rate that your body can handle and not freak out and think that it has to start storing glucose as fat. Remember, de novo lipogenesis is rare under normal dietary conditions, and normal dietary conditions are just eating as much as you want whenever you're hungry and choosing foods that work with your body to maintain excellent health. Ratil 4 promotes a way of eating that no other culture in this world practices. Recommendations that have no scientific basis and is achieving these rare conditions that allow de novo lipogenesis to occur. Alright guys, well that is what I am laying out on the table now. And I would really love for this video to just spread like wildfire so everyone can understand what is happening. You do not have to settle for metabolic damage. The human body is complicated, but it's not impossible to figure out. I am a highly curious person, and I'm just dumbfounded how people can spend their time making videos that are completely irrelevant to human health, nutrition, and even veganism. I spend all of my day and most of my free time studying these topics so I can be fully informed when making recommendations. And I make sure to adjust my opinions if I learn anything new and explain why I've made those changes so you guys can understand as well. There is no excuse for giving recommendations that are not justifiable by real evidence. And I think that a person has true power, true influence, not by how many views they get, not by how many people they upset or the controversy or drama they stir up, but by their willingness to seek the truth and to have knowledge that works for people, not against them. And you do not have to stay blindfolded. You can design a vegan diet that fits you and your lifestyle. You don't have to try to jam in this puzzle piece that is just not fitting. Even though all these people are telling you, well, you just gotta make it fit, you just have to, push it in and make it work. This is not the truth, and there is a better way. Diet should be the easiest part of your life, a means to nourish yourself so that you can experience new things and socialize with people and learn and grow to be people that you are proud to be. On this channel, I will teach you the nutritional science so that you can make your own decisions. You can make your own diet for yourself. I want to empower you guys with knowledge, and so that you can get away from this hyper-controlled way of eating and just live your life. And occasionally surpassing glycogen storage capacity will not result in significant fat gain. If anything, just carbohydrate utilization will increase during that time, and you'll just be able to burn a little more in non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so increased fidgeting and things like that. Like I said, you don't have to worry about it. The leading experts in nutritional science don't recommend that you track your macronutrients on chronometer, that you make sure you're reaching however many calories a day. To just eat until you're full, because your body is the best measurement of what you need. Tides are turning, guys, and we have the ability and power to change this crazy competition of who has the better diet into an actual movement that's led and supported by kind, compassionate, and educated people that together can make this world a better place. I don't think that Ratil 4 was created with negative intentions. I think that the intentions were completely honest and, from a compassionate place, because clearly Durian Rider and Freely wanted to make veganism more accessible to people, but Ratil 4 is not. I mean, compared to raw veganism, it has better convenience and maybe more affordability, but compared to just a whole food diet, it doesn't have any legs to stand on. And that's all I have to say about that. As far as my channel and my videos upcoming in the future, I'm going to focus around explaining the science behind a whole food plant-based diet that I'm going to call Earth Food, and then an optional practice called Light at Night. And what this is I had originally called it Fruit After 4, which is just the idea of having a lighter evening meal, not less food in the evening, just lighter choices. And so Fruit After 4 was just a temporary title. I always intended to change it to something that more accurately represented my recommendations and beliefs. And I'll start to talk about the specifics of what is Earth Food and what is Light at Night, just so you guys can, fully understand and see if it's a practice that you'd like to adopt. But most importantly is just focusing around whole plant foods. And so Fruit After 4 is no more. For you Instagrammers out there, you can start hashtagging Light at Night rather than Fruit After 4. It's the same concept, it's just a different name that better reflects just my opinions and the recommendations that I'll be talking about in the future. And also start hashtagging Earth Food if you like, so we can start promoting a whole food diet and just really encouraging people to get back to a natural way of eating. Many thanks to Hannah for answering my questions and standing up for the people in this community that have experienced fat gain and are just being told that it's metabolic damage and they just have to be patient and all this other stuff. She's truly a voice for all those people, and I really respect just the strength that she's shown despite being attacked by people that have a hard time talking about ideas and just prefer to talk about people. So like I said before, guys, I would really love this video to spread like wildfire and to reach Harley and Freely right away, and so that they can work on a video addressing the content in my video. If you're watching this, Harley or Freely, I would like you to respond to my contents. I don't want to hear you talk about me personally or Hannah personally or anyone. I would really like you to just discuss the ideas, to discuss what I've talked about, the study, what you think, if you can bring your own ideas and things to the table, and then we can actually have a discussion rather than you just attacking people's characters, as seems to happen very often lately. So I don't think that's too much to ask. We'll see what happens from here. As always, guys, have a wonderfully abundant day, and see you next video. Bye.